All right. Before I bring up our speakers today, we got to do the commercial. John, you ready? All right. Okay, welcome YouTube. Hope you enjoy service this morning. If you want to continue to join us for service, hit the like button and subscribe and you will get notifications. Also, Scott Gostomski, here's your shout out. Scott wanted a shout out on YouTube today. Hi, Scott. And I want to give another one to my somewhat adopted sister, Carol Ann. Carol Ann was gifted to our family as an ex-girlfriend of my brother. And we took her in, and her and I used to just fight like brother and sister for all the time that she lived with us. But she tuned in today. She called me this morning and said she wanted to check us out, and she was very proud of me. Hey, Carolyn. All right, now I want to invite Eric and Maria Holbein. My wife likes to call you guys Holbein. It's not an affinity for coffee or anything. but we were, I'll bring it down for you. But I just want to introduce, we've been supporting Eric and Maria now for, is it 3 years? Almost 4 years, and it's been a pleasure, because we're connected with them. This is Mark and Deb's son and daughter, and it's been so good to be able to invest in what they're doing over there in ministry, and I have a heart for the population that they serve there, because my wife and I serve that population here, and over there, they're really, they're seen as those who are cursed, am I right? Or just incapable, so it's a good work. It's really good work, and we're so excited to hear about that work. I'll bring that down for you. Yeah.
So I think most of you know us, but I'll just in case you don't. Like Mike said, I'm from Cattaraugus. I grew up here. Eric and I met at Houghton, and he's from the Rochester area, and we've been in Tanzania for the past nearly 4 years. Just do that. Yeah, and we've just finished our contract at the end of 2016, and we've moved back to the States. We wanted to share because during the past 4 years, nearly 4 years, Victory has been a really big support for us financially and spiritually through prayer, and we're just really grateful for that. So, So also, a lot of you have probably heard us talk about NEMA before, but I'm just going to sum up what NEMA is for those of you who don't know. NEMA Crafts is a non-for-profit organization that helps train, employ, and empower more than 100 people with disabilities in Iringa, Tanzania. It was started by the local Anglican diocese about 14 years ago, with just 3 deaf artisans making paper out of elephant tongue. It's grown to now have 8 different craft workshops, a cafe, a guest house, and a therapy center for children with disabilities.
20 people.
Yeah, there's about 120 guys working for NEMA now. So people with disability in Tanzania are among the poorest of the poor because they're often not considered worth educating or being given the opportunity to have a job because of the stigma that's attached to having a disability. So NEMA Craft's aim is to exhibit that every individual has value and ability. In a place where disability is literally seen as a curse, NEMA Craft seeks to make a statement about God's loving and redemptive character to people living with a disability, to their families, to their community, and to the guests who come and visit the shop and guest house at NEMA. So I want to just read you a story, like the personal story of our friend Allie, who is a manager at NEMA. So just so you can get a little bit of a perspective from somebody who's been involved in NEMA from, that's our friend Allie. Allie was baptized 2 years ago. He completed the Alpha course with us last year. He heads up a deaf soccer team, and he's very enthusiastic about soccer, to say the least. He has a really cool vision for taking the deaf team out to villages. We're in kind of Oringa as a town, yeah, out in villages is really tough environment for people with disabilities. Kids are often hidden away at home, not educated. There's a lot of issues. So he has a vision to take the team out and do matches out in villages. And they've started doing that and joining together with a pastor from the diocese who shares the gospel, and another physically disabled friend who comes out and shares their personal story about living with a disability. Yeah.
Maybe, John, at this point, if we could roll the rest of the pictures while Maria's reading that off. Just show you some pictures of what NAMA looks like.
From just Tanzania, yeah. Okay. So this is Ali's story. My name is Ali Daudi Ngenga. I was born in 1985. When I was 5, I got ill, and when I recovered, I couldn't hear very well. This got worse until I couldn't hear at all. After lots of thinking about what to do with me, my parents sent me away to a Ringa school for the deaf. It was great to learn with other deaf people, and I was able to learn sign language at the school and talk with my friends. When I finished, I wanted to go to secondary school. My parents said that I should go and live near my sister in Moshi, very far from home. She was teaching at a Muslim school, but my parents thought that I couldn't learn Arabic, so instead I went to a local technical school. The only way I could pay fees was through the support of the Anglican Diocese of Ruaha in Oringa. At first, I hated life there. The food was bad, and no one thought I could do much because I was deaf. I used to cry a lot at night as I felt really isolated. What helped was being invited to play football, soccer, one day with the senior boys. Everyone was amazed when they saw me play so well, and here I made some friends with someone 2 years above who helped to look after me. On Sundays, I found there was a Lutheran church in town that had a really good sign language translator, so I attended this regularly. Once I completed Form 4, and I was waiting for my exam results, I returned home to Oringa. I found out that my mother was very sick and she needed money to pay for hospital bills. I heard about NAMA Crafts and that it had opened in town and it helped people like me. So I went and took some part-time work there. I gave everything I earned to my parents so that my mom could get better, and I was pleased when she finally recovered. When I received my exam results, they weren't very good. So I asked if I could continue to work at NAMA Crafts. The director agreed, and now I have been here for over 7 years. I have learned to cook many different things and meet many people from around the world. I'm the kitchen manager and the head of my department. NAMA has helped so many deaf people. You don't see any begging in the streets of Oringa anymore because NAMA has employed them. NAMA and the church have helped me so much. It was the church which paid for my education, and now NAMA employs me. Although my family are Muslim, I decided to get baptized during a NAMA Crafts weekend retreat. I'm thankful to my boss, the NAMA Crafts chaplain, and my friends who agreed with my decision, but most of all my father, who allowed me to follow my faith. Now my name is not Ali, but Alan, and I thank God for all he has done for me.
Yeah, I thought I'd just add there, just now, that is for some of you maybe who don't have much exposure to, because Tanzania is kind of divided in Muslim and Christian. Majority Christian, but on the coast there's a lot more Muslim faith, but that's a big deal for him to, because he's the only one in his family. I just thought it worth sharing just now a little bit, like appreciating what that was for him to commit his life to Christ, and him, that note there about appreciating his father letting him doing it, that's almost unheard of. So just for us, it was really encouraging just seeing the grace of God in his life and in his family, even though his father passed away, still Muslim, but his family has been very, very supportive of him. So that's a huge deal for him to do that. But so yeah, that's Ali's story. I'll carry on to the couple. So we wanted to just give you a little bit of an idea what specifically were we doing, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to walk you through just an example of our day-to-day routine, because some people might, you think like, what does a missionary do? And maybe you think like doing Bible translation in a bamboo hut in the jungle. I don't know. And there are some people that probably do that, but our sort of routine looked a little bit different than that. So I thought it'd be just kind of fun to just walk you through a bit, like an hour by hour, like what did an average Monday look like or something. Might give you a bit of a picture, as well as seeing these actual pictures of what Aringa and Name of Crafts looked like. I thought we'd just go through this real quick. So 6:30 a.m., alarm goes off, make the coffee, get ready to go to work. And because we were working at a center, we had sort of routine business hours. So it was very much like attending a job. And we had very regular hours that we had to stick to, and had a facility and an office to go to. So this is a Monday. So on Monday mornings at 7:45, we had to get in a little bit early, open the doors, and prepare for our Monday morning Bible study, because it is a Christian organization. The directors always felt very strongly in that we would do, even though we have probably, what do we usually say, 30% of our staff come from Islamic background. Not necessarily everyone's Christian, but we do a Monday morning Bible study, and actually some of the best attendees were Muslim and the most punctual ones. So we do a 15 to 20 minute, though we never seem to get it done in 15 to 20 minutes. We do a short Bible study every Monday morning. We go through, sing a few songs together, and then there'd be a short message from our staff chaplain, and then we take prayer requests. And so that was a nice way to start the week. 8 a.m., we'd start the workday. I, for example, would often be doing the cash up routine because we had a cafe and a shop where we'd sell all of our product. I had to go through and settle up for the weekend. And then Maria would be often, because she would handle a lot of the production of all these crafts and handmade things, she'd be handing out work and distributing targets for all of the different departments. 10 a.m. is chai time. So chai just means tea in Swahili. We always drank coffee, but it was chai time at 10 o'clock. So we'd always take a half-hour break. The whole facility, we'd take a break for a half hour and have our coffee break. And usually we'd go up to the cafe and catch up with Ben and any of the other volunteers. Ben and Katie are the directors of Name of Crafts. So we just catch up with them and have coffee, and it was a nice way to also just rub shoulders with the guys up in the cafe, because the cafe was all managed by deaf staff, so it was a nice way to see them because they weren't down in the workshop. 10:30, everyone back to work. I'd continue, typically for a period of time, I was working with a young woman named Sareti, doing accounting. I was training her and doing a lot of the bookkeeping and things that were needed. So I'd work with her usually through the rest of the morning, answering a lot of her questions and tackling a lot of the gnarly accounting scenarios that we had. And then Maria would often meet with Mode and Zawadi, were their names, just covering production planning and orders planning for the coming week, and doing that. 1 o'clock, we take lunch, and everyone breaks for lunch at 1. So again, there's about 75, 80 staff on site, and then the rest of those 125 would work off site and bring their work in. So we had a full-time chef who would prepare staff meals, and that was just a part of, it's a very common thing in Tanzania to provide a meal, the noon meal at your place of work. So we'd prepare a meal for 60 to 80 people, depending. Everyone would take lunch. We'd often go up to the cafe again and just have lunch up there with Ben. And that lasted for about 45 minutes, so 1:45, lunch over, back to work. I typically would spend my afternoons, for those of you who don't know, you probably find out pretty quickly anyway, but I'm a potter. I love working with clay. So there was pottery was one of the departments that I was trying to get back on its feet. And so I'd spend a lot of times my afternoons doing that. Then Maria would often do something like continue to help department leaders, because a lot of questions, a lot of people coming to her, and her office was constantly bombarded with people just saying, there's this word in Swahili, it's called shida. It means problem. There are a lot of shidas in Tanzania. And so people would always come to her door and knock and say, Nina shida, it means I have a problem. So she'd have to help them sort out, okay, well, here's how you do this, or like we need this many for this week, and you're behind, or you're ahead, and looking at targets and working with them. So that would be the afternoon. Work ended at 4:45. We always had we'd sound the beginning and end of the day with we had a bell, it was a cowbell, actually. We'd always ring that bell, and somebody's job to ring that bell at the beginning of the day, 8 o'clock, and then at 4:45, that bell was rung again. So once that bell was rung, everyone cleaned up for the day, packed up, and then moved out, because a lot of people and it was important not to let the day go too late. And actually, it was supposed to end at 5, I think, originally, but ends at 4:45 to give people just that extra bit of time to get home, because a lot of them, they have sort of hand trikes, or if they're deaf, they might have a regular bike, but they live way outside of town in the suburbs. And so it takes, some people would bike, I think, well, the guys out in Kitasengwa would, it'd be more than an hour bike ride to get in. And sun's down between 6:30 and 7 every day. So 4:45, they had to get going to get home and then start dinner. On Monday in particular, Ben and I, we would always go and play a soccer match with the deaf guys. And so Allie, who you saw, would usually head that up. And we just had a really good time. It was a nice way for me and Ben to unwind and play for a couple hours. We played till dark and probably played further than we should have, because the guys would always then be getting home way after dark. We enjoyed that every Monday. It was a nice sort of schedule to follow. And then 9 p.m., go to bed. We went to bed pretty early most days because we're pretty exhausted. That gives you a little idea of what our a sample of a day would look like. So I think last time, as some of you may remember, last time we spoke here at Victory, that would have been about 2.5, coming up on 3 years ago now, when we were looking at going back, and we had set out some goals and had an idea of what we were going to be doing and helping Ben and Katie accomplish some things. So I'll just give you an idea of what were some of the specific things that we did, and what have we done for the last 2.5 years. So we have this training program, which I think we talked about. Ben and Katie as directors had a vision. Since they were the directors, you can spend a lot of time micromanaging an organization that's growing that quickly, and that just consumes all your time. So they wanted to train up middle managers, sort of, or take those that were showing potential, training them up, department leaders, team leaders, giving them more and more responsibility and equipping them with more and more training and skills to then take a lot of that load off their shoulders and put it on theirs. It just makes the whole thing more sustainable as well. So for example, I mentioned Saretti's name already. I was working with Saretti, teaching her some of the accounting, because I'm an artist, I don't naturally take to accounting, but I had to learn it. That was one of the things I learned when we ran the facility for 6 months while Ben and Katie were on leave. So I knew how to do the bookkeeping, I guess is a better way to put it. So I had to train then Saretti to do that, so I'd be working with her. I worked with Maneno and Mohammed, were their names, in the pottery and glass department. I also worked with the cafe staff in doing some front of house management and putting in a new register and POS system and everything. Whereas Maria was involved in doing a lot with the production side of things down in the workshop. So she'd work with women by the name of Zawadi and Valeriana. They would handle production and orders. And then Mode was the stock manager and basically quality control guy. So she was training them. And there was a whole lot more that went into that, but that kind of gives you in a nutshell what we were doing with the training program that we put together. And then just general management of the facility. It's a growing business, and so there's just running and operating the business. I say business, it's a ministry, but it's very much run to be a self-sustaining business, that everything that goes back, all the profits and anything that comes from the business is put back into, it's their project really. And I'll get on to the housing project later, but any profit or proceeds or whatever that comes back, it's all theirs. Ben and Katie and anyone else that comes in is supported from the outside. None of us took a salary from NEMA except for the employees, the disabled employees. So there's a lot of management that needed to be just opening the facility, letting 60 to 80 people in, getting them all to their place, and just putting out all of the numerous fires that can come up in a day-to-day. Yeah, she does. So just generally keeping the place running was a lot of what we did. Now, I think, John, if you could pull up that other folder of pictures, the housing one, I want to talk about the housing program that we were doing. If I can try and be concise, because I can easily go off on a tangent with this. I can talk about this for a long time, but the founding director, a woman named Susie Hart, had a vision to not only help people with occupational training and an income by establishing this center, but also to help people eventually build their own homes. She thought that she would, we're getting there. She thought that we'd do that through small sort of microfinancing and microloans. But for various reasons, we decided, Ben and Katie decided that that was actually not the best way to go about it. We would actually raise money through profits and through a little bit of partnership with other donors, raise money to do that, and then people would contribute a certain percentage to finish the house. So, I don't know, John, have you got those photos? I can keep buying time. Yeah, here we are. So I've just got a few photos. These were just simple, meant to be simple starter homes. And I actually, Ben and Katie asked me to kind of head up this project. So I was heavily involved. You can see the man on the very right-hand side there leaning on a stick. His name is Haruna. He was one of our outworkers, just doing small sewing projects and things, but he was actually, I think, very underutilized doing that for many years. And we identified him as being, we put together a sort of housing decision-making committee of disabled staff to help Ben and I make decisions. And Haruna, we kind of ended up calling him the foreman or the supervisor of the project. He was the one out there in the day-to-day, like rubbing shoulders with the local government officials or the contractor or whoever. We'd often make decisions because Ben and I couldn't be running around doing all these things, and he knows the language a whole lot better and knows the culture, so it was much easier to have him do it. So Haruna was a huge help. But this is an example of, I believe this is house number 1 that we opened. This was when we actually had a ribbon cutting day, and we opened the house. So why don't we flip to the next one, John? We've built, at this point, I think they finished number 14, and we have about 65 to go. So it's a big project, but God has been blessing it immensely. We had some partnership with an Australian organization that donated a huge amount of money we needed about half of what we needed. They ended up donating about the equivalent of $40,000 to help us. And one of these homes costs about $2,000 to build. They're really simple, sort of a 2-room house that you could partition, divide off as you please, and an outside toilet and bathroom and shower. But they're really simple. But when you look at where people are coming from and what they're renting, they're more than ample, more than sufficient. I'm going to keep flipping on to the next one or two. This is Edda, just after her house was completed. She was, I won't go into it now, but I'd love, if anyone's curious about Edda, we'd love to tell you more about her. She's just a sweet woman. Her husband is not well, and she's probably going to be a widow soon, so it's really, really amazing that we got her into a home, and she has her own home, and she owns that. So yeah, really just amazing that these people are getting out of the trap of paying rent, because rent is actually a huge part of people's wages, and often different than here, rent is sort of demanded by the landlord in 6 to 12 month payments ahead of time. You got to pay it all up front. That would be a lot even here. Like, you can imagine doing that. That'd be a big chunk of money. So this is the pottery. I'll kind of transition from housing. I could spend a lot of time talking about that, but if anybody's curious or wants to hear me yammer on, I'd love to share more. Again, ceramics was one of the things that I was pushing forward as a potter. This is a department that's kind of floundered for many years, and we'll see how it does now. But this is Mohammed on the left there, and Meneno is in the back. Both these guys are deaf, and they're just a joy to work with. And both of them, Meneno in the back, he had been trained before as a potter, so he knew how to throw on that wheel there. That's a kick wheel made out of an old Land Cruiser tire. You kick it with your leg, just out of 2x4s. So that's Mohammed, and he was new to pottery, and I trained him myself with Meneno's help. But Mohammed's just really one of those guys that the term is fundi. Basically means tradesperson. It covers anything. You could be a fundi a bomba, which is a pipe tradesperson, a plumber. You could be a fundi of anything. A car mechanic is still a fundi. And Mohammed is a fundi. He can do anything. Anything he puts his hands to, he's good at. He's just really skilled with his hands, so he took to it really easily. And the last thing that we had on our list that we wanted to cover with Ben and Katie always had a heart to do. Does anyone know the Alpha course? Has anyone heard of that before? We hadn't really, I had heard of it, but didn't have much exposure to it. I think Katie had taken it once before. But we wanted to do an Alpha course with a select group of guys, just a small, the idea is you meet in someone's home, you go through this course, and it covers a lot of these different questions. And it can be for new believers, even longtime believers, someone who's just got a lot of questions. And it was a great way because a lot of guys, even though, especially I think the deaf community in Tanzania, because not every place, there are actually a remarkable amount of sign language translators, but still, a lot of them, like Mode there in the middle with the striped shirt kind of squatting down there. Mode is a good friend, but his understanding of the gospel is pretty, I guess you could say, minimal, and it was just, you realize you get talking with him and you're like, wow, so you don't actually know the fundamentals of this or that, and you would say, he would identify as being a Christian, but it was really good to do with the guys just to go back to the basics and cover what is the gospel, and then give them a sort of platform to ask questions, be very upfront, and say, and it kind of exposed a lot of misteachings in the past, or just gave them a sort of free and open environment where they could just ask questions, and it was great. It was a good time. We just did it with, what was there, 7 of us. We did a weekend retreat. Part of the Alpha course is you do a weekend retreat away, so we did this at a local campsite, and that was just a really blessed time where the guy in the middle, it's funny, they're both the sort of chartreuse bright yellow shirt there, that's Ali, who we showed you before, but then also in the white shirt next to him is also Ali. Alistair, but he's called Ali, is a friend of Ben's who he's in seminary at the moment. He came out and was able to do the class with us because he had taken the course and taught it a lot of times. So that was just a really blessed weekend. That was a lot of fun. So that was kind of what we've been doing. Again, we were living in town, and it's a town of about 150,000 people. So it's not a small town. So we were living right in town, and we lived about 5 minutes, 10-minute walk from Nema. What else did I have here? So we really just wanted to thank all you guys and Victory as a whole for your support. You guys have very generously and lovingly supported us the whole way through, and we just feel really blessed for that and grateful. And that blessing, I think, has been passed on to the guys at Nema. And
Amen.
We just appreciate that. And you guys, we always marveled. Victory is this small country church, but you guys, I think, just be encouraged that you can do big things.
Amen.
And you can serve God anywhere, wherever you are. You don't have to go to East Africa to do that. You can do that in your community. Where you live, no matter what the size, there's always need. There's always people that you can talk to and minister to. And that can look very different. That can be like Luke is very outgoing in sharing the gospel. That can be just cooking meals for people. That can be, I just wanted to encourage, that can look very different. And just being a missionary in your own community, in your own life, is possible. We also wanted to ask, while our contract is finished and we're now starting life back here right in Cattaraugus, we wanted to encourage you guys to be continuing to pray with us for Nema, because we've left, but their work carries on. And Ben and Katie are in a really tough chapter where in many ways we've built it up and we kind of helped them build it up, and now we've moved on and they're looking for someone, because it's getting to be too much for the two of them to manage, and they're looking to expand even. So they're looking for another couple, ideally, to come out with an organization. But also, so we can be praying for them in the long term, but also in the short term. For example, they are due to go on leave back to the UK for 6 months. There's no one to cover their leave, and without anyone to cover and spot them for 6 months, they can't go on leave. So we're praying almost every day that someone would, they've tried a lot of options and tried to find someone, but so far no doors have opened. So we're just continuing to pray that God opens that door and brings someone out to spot them, because they could use a break. Pray for the housing project to move forward. that has been a challenge, to say the least. It's been blessed, but it has been a challenge, because working in that economy and culture, there's corruption everywhere in the world, but it looks very different here or in Europe or wherever. There, it's pretty obvious, and it gets up in your face and in your way all the time. So corruption with government officials looking for bribes or looking for this or that, and holding up the process intentionally and refusing to give you building permits or whatever. It's made it move a lot slower than we'd like. But we're trusting God that He has a plan, and He loves everyone at NEMA, and will give them all homes, but the timing's just looking a little bit different. But that can still use prayer. Also, just pray for the spiritual growth at NEMA. Again, probably 70% of the staff would identify as being Christian. Where they all stand with the Lord, it's hard to know. We don't know. God knows. So we do, as I mentioned, have a part-time chaplain that's on staff. So just pray for him and for his role in investing in the staff and we do weekly Bible studies in the middle of the week as well. So just pray that there's more opportunity to do more alpha courses like this, and that the Monday morning Bible studies would be blessed and people would participate and really feel God just knocking on their hearts. So just praying, for the spiritual growth at NEMA.
The chaplain's name is Yared.
His name is Yared. Kisalodya. I don't expect you to remember the last name. If you have to, Jared works here. And lastly, I don't know where we are for time. But lastly, I just have one last thought. I think there's talk about, is it Guatemala doing a short term? Just a bit of encouragement there from our perspective. With this trip possibly coming up, I just worried about Guatemala and short term mission in general. I think we would just encourage you to just think about it, pray about it, and go. If God gives you the opportunity, go. In some circles these days, short-term mission is coming under a bit of criticism, but I think when you go, if you feel called to do it, and you go with the right heart and the right mind, it can be an immensely blessed experience. But go with an open heart and an open mind, and realize that you are probably going to be the one most profoundly impacted by the experience, especially with short-term mission. And that's not a bad thing. Like, you're still going to, whether you're building a church or helping a local missionary with this or that, it's all good things. But we tried to, when we, without beating our own chests or holding ourselves up too high, we just felt that when we felt called to go to Tanzania, we realized that we were probably going to be the students in this whole thing, and we were going to come out of it far more blessed, far more invested in than we had anything to offer. And I think if you go with that kind of perspective, that you go as a student, go to learn, and then serve where you can, it will be a blessed experience all around. And what God shows you through that, and blesses those who you go to serve, we just don't know, and you don't know where to lead. Also, I'd love to talk to you. If anyone is considering going on this trip or doing anything like doing mission abroad or mission here. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
You nailed it. My intention, for short-term missions, you nailed it. You really didn't. I appreciate that, because we know that we have a mission field in our backyard here, and Luke is really out on it, but I think when you go out on the mission field and learn, and see the differences in culture and how blessed you are, it really increases your passion here, as well as for over there. That's exciting. It really is. So if you have anybody here who, I know there's a few of you that do want to go, that's awesome. And we have this help right here with us now, and man, thank you, Jesus. All right, but a couple of things in what Eric and Maria were telling us about, hope. You have this people group over there, who desperately needs to hear the gospel, and they also desperately need to be accepted in their culture, They need that community. And you have Eric and Maria and Nema, they're teaching them skills and accepting them. And they're able to grab hold of this worth, this understanding of worth. That's one of the things that Heather and I learned at the rehab center when we worked there. These people are beautiful, and they have so much to contribute to life and to community. And, really the mission statement of the agency was to provide these people with as normal experience as possible. That was like the goal, And you guys are over there, and you have this hope that brought you into the mission field, and you had you gained this confidence and strength from Jesus, and they get that added to their experience of learning skills and stuff, and I'm blessed, and I'm so glad that we've had the opportunity over these years to support you guys and to support this ministry, and I'm so glad that we have now you here to really, release some information and see a passion flare up in our folks, Yeah, that's good. But if anybody has questions for Eric and Maria, we're going to stay in this.
So the question is just how do we feel about our safety and with just rumors of terror and things in that area of the world? And the way we get a lot of people asking us that, and I think we feel as though we were incredibly blessed to be called to Tanzania. It's not without trouble, but neither is the U.S. But it is the Swahili people, Tanzanians, are very peace-loving people, and they have worked long and hard to stay at peace with each other and with their neighbors. You've got Kenya, Rwanda, the Congo, Malawi, a lot of countries that have had a lot of conflict. A lot of awful things have happened, but Tanzania has remained relatively peaceful. And so I think the short answer is, I don't know, how would you answer that, honey? I think we felt very safe, especially in Iringa. It's sort of medium-sized town, but it's kind of a sleepy little Iringa. It's not that bad. Dar es Salaam, Zanzibar, some of the other places, it's the same thing. Like if you go to New York City, you're not going to go into certain neighborhoods, right? So you got to be aware of kind of everyday sort of things and just know where you should go, where you shouldn't go, what time of day to visit this place and that place. We tried our best to get our parents in the worst part of Dar es Salaam one day. They can tell you about that. But yeah, no, we felt just very blessed, and yeah, never felt really that threatened or like I said, a lot of places. There are places in Kenya or up to the north that, yeah, it's a pretty dicey place to be. But I'd say Tanzania, especially Iringa.
And we even experienced an election in Tanzania, and it was elections. Yeah, can be rough, and it was smooth. Yeah. So that was a really big blessing. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah. So you said like composition, how it's the makeup of, yeah. Okay, so the question is just asking about sort of the composition, or what is the sort of makeup of the body, the family at Nema Crafts. Yeah, I mentioned that there's probably 70% Christian, 30% Muslim. Between being deaf and then otherwise disabled, it's pretty much 50-50. About half of the staff are deaf, I think it was. It fluctuates up to maybe 55-45 sometimes, up and down. But it's pretty much half and half. And that's not due to any planning on our part, it's just the way it's worked out. There's a lot of people that have had polio, and what else? How would you break it down? Some people, like, we thought about reading. Yeah, yeah. Some people.
Illness or lost a leg in a car accident or like just.
Soretti, yeah. I think we read Soretti's story last time. I don't know. Do you want to tell that story? So Soretti, who I worked with really closely, hers is a very tragic but very moving story. She's an incredible individual. So Soretti does not have either of her legs. They were amputated pretty much at the hip, like just down. But she, it's been a while since I read her story, but if I remember this right, she at birth or very young, I think she wasn't even one, right? She was just an infant. Because for some reason, she is Maasai. Some of you may have heard of the Maasai tribe. They're very tall herdspeople, and kind of nomadic over time. And one of the tribes that has stayed fairly traditional, I guess. So she was, I think, born out in the village, and was it her uncle or aunt? Who was the one? A family member, because she looked very different. She has a very round face, is a little bit, probably just looked different. They thought that maybe this wasn't, it was a witch doctor. Somebody who thought that this child was evil. And this child was not probably was an illegitimate child or of the devil or something. Strongly disapproved of her as an infant, as a human being. Threw her into a fire when her parents were away. And thankfully, when she was just an infant, so tried to burn her alive. And as a result, her legs were burned very badly, but a family member, I think it was even her father or her uncle, heard her screams and came and rescued her, because not all of the family agreed with this individual, whether it was a witch doctor or some other family member. They actually valued their child. Pulled her out of the fire, but actually at that point the damage had been done, and so she had to lose both legs. So she grew up without the use of her legs, and she would actually get around in a 5-gallon bucket. She'd sit in a 5-gallon bucket and could, like, work that around and, like, mop the floor and do everything in this 5-gallon bucket. Just amazing. Like, I saw a video once of her doing that as an adult, and you just would not believe people are so able to adapt. Tanzanians are so creative and so just, very adaptable people. And so her father, and many people said, just the Maasai would often leave their child, if there was a child that was disabled, they would often leave it out literally for the wolves. Now, there aren't actually wolves, but lions. Leave them out in the wilderness to be consumed by whatever would consume them. Very harsh environment. And all of the family, especially after she had both of her legs amputated, said, just leave her for dead. What good is she? And her father said, no, this is my child, which is very countercultural, very unusual for him to take such a strong stance, because all of the culture is just pushing for him to comply. But he just stood up and said, no, this is my daughter. I'm going to love her, and I'm going to raise her as any other daughter. And he had lots of other daughters. And so she got an opportunity, she got sponsorship and got an opportunity to go on to school. She went to a Salvation Army school in Dar es Salaam, in the capital, and was educated, which is very unusual. So she had an opportunity, and she is bright. She is an intelligent woman. She is, sharp as a whip. I mean, and that's why we put her on doing bookkeeping and accounting, because she has a head for it. I mean, she can calculate things way faster than I can in her head. Like, she is bright. So she went on and got educated, and eventually came around to get an opportunity to work at Nema Crafts. And now she is one of the highest earning employees. Her salary, it's still small by even professional standards in Tanzania, but we're trying to raise that wage and grow Nema Crafts, and she is at probably I think number 2 in terms of salary pay grade. And she's doing really, really well, and just thriving. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to her story, but I wish I'd have brought it. She does have the most beautiful smile. Yeah, yeah. She is just a sweet individual and very driven and very motivated, very driven, very intelligent. And so I had the privilege of being able to work with her side by side for the last 3 years, and she's become an amazing friend to both of us. I don't know if that answered the question. I mean, there are various people like with different disabilities. Some had cancer, like Titus had cancer, and he had his leg amputated at the knee when he was 5. And then the cancer continued to spread, so then it was amputated at the hip. Other people, yeah, again, were born with disability. Some were in car wrecks. Road safety is not nearly what it is here. A lot of car wrecks, a lot of buses, drinking under the influence or driving under the influence of drugs and alcohol is common. So there's a lot of wrecks, a lot of people that are maimed because of that. A lot of polio.
I have heard a statistic that 10% of the population has some form of disability.
Which, of 45 to 50 million, that's a lot. That's a lot. So Tanzania needs a lot more Name-A-Crafts because Name-A-Crafts is ministering to the population in Iringa, and a lot of people actually will relocate hundreds of miles and move to Iringa because there's a job when the jobs open up. I don't know I'm afraid we're getting a little long-winded, but if there's anyone that has another question, again, we would love to talk with anyone who has any questions. Don't be afraid. Any question, no question is silly, stupid, unappreciated. We would love, if nothing else, just to tell you stories. We've got lots of stories. Yeah. I'll let you know in 6 months. No. The question is, how was it switching from our culture to Tanzanian culture back to this culture? And we've come back a couple of times, and they always say, whether you work abroad or are serving in the mission field abroad, reverse culture shock, coming back to your own culture is the hardest. So we're right in the middle of that, so it's kind of hard to answer that. I still haven't been into Walmart yet since being home. I think that is the most overwhelming thing. You just I could buy one of 15 different types of toothpaste. So it is challenging, and you definitely, and it doesn't, culture shock, at least for me, I think didn't hit me, because this was, for me, I had been in Europe once, but I'd never been outside of the U.S. other than that. So Maria had studied in Tanzania for 3 months with Houghton, so had some exposure to living in East Africa, at least for 3 months. I had nothing. I just said, let's roll. Let's try this. So for me, it hit pretty hard, probably 6 to 12 months. And it hits you in different ways at different times. Sometimes you think I'm fine, and then all of a sudden something comes up, or somebody says something, or you're arguing with a police officer or whatever. And I've got stories there. And you realize, wow, this is different. And I fundamentally, the way I was raised, or my culture, just what I believe flies in the face of what this culture is telling me. And it takes a while to uncover that. There's a lot of layers that these things are hidden under. And I imagine that's going to, again, because we've been probably profoundly impacted by our time in Tanzania, things are going to fly in our face about what we don't like, and rediscovering things about your own culture that you realize, man, I never saw this before, but now I'm seeing it in a different light. I don't like that. Ask me that again in 6 to 9 months. Let's see how we're doing. Anything else, or should we just, we're happy. Again, I can, with the Guatemala trip, if anybody has questions or wants to get our thoughts, I could also recommend a really good book to read if you're interested. Again, we definitely have stories to share and would love to talk. So maybe we wrap it up there, and we're more than available.
If you guys are open to having people
definitely
ask questions and
grab us by the arm and just say, hey, I got a question. I was wondering about this or that. Feel free.
That's great.
So thanks for listening, and thank you again for your past prayer and support and continued prayer and support, and just loving on us and loving Name-A-Crafts through us. So,
amen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Amen. Amen. That was so good. You know, as I'm listening to them tell the stories and see, you know, the passion in their eyes and the experience that they had, you know, it reminds me of just how significant every single one of us are in presenting the gospel in word and deed, you know, in word and deed, you know. So remember that, you know, really, you guys are the ones that God chose to represent him at this time on this earth, and very often are the first experience that people may have with this awesome Father is through you. And you know what? Look at yourself in the mirror a little bit different. You weren't worth a thing that he did for you, but he thought you were worth it. Amen? He thought you were worth it. And he's given us his Spirit, and he's given us this opportunity to truly see lives changed and transformed before our eyes, and that's exciting. You know, what's better than that? Amen? Amen. So, Lord, we thank you, and we praise you for this time that we've had together. Lord, thank you so much for Eric and Maria, Lord, and thank you that there's opportunities, Lord, to present your gospel in word and deed all over the place, Lord. Lord, outside our front door, Lord, thousands of miles away, and it's the same truth, Lord, and it's the same seed, oh God, and we know that seed produces salvation. So we thank you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so let's go and have some fellowship time and continue to grab hold of everything that Eric and Maria have